We could all use some encouragement. And I've got some good news for you. Welcome to 5 Minutes with Mark. Well, greetings, friends. Welcome back to 5 Minutes with Mark. We're picking up the story today, chapter 4 of the Gospel of Mark. We start again at verse 2. Remember, Jesus is sitting in a boat in the lake, a little bit offshore, but he's teaching the multitude that is gathered there. Then he taught them many things by parables, and said to them in his teaching, "Listen, behold, a sower went out to sow. And it happened, as he sowed, that some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds of the air came and devoured it. Some fell on stony ground, where it did not have much earth, and immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. And some seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. But other seed fell on good ground, and yielded a crop that sprang up, increased and produced, some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100. And he said to them, He who has ears to hear, let him hear." So, of course, we know this parable well. If you've been in church any length of time, you've heard this one. And we know Jesus is going to give the disciples his key to this. But this is the opening parable of the Gospel of Mark. This is where Jesus, his teaching begins. And it tells us a couple of things. First, when Jesus is teaching about sowing seeds, he's in an agrarian society. He's with people who understood. They have either done this themselves, they've certainly seen this done. They get the point of a sower is sowing seeds. Behold, a sower went out to sow. But you probably, I think, because we're familiar with this parable, because we've heard it and we know that Jesus gives us what the parable is about. He gives us this spiritual connection to it. We don't see the befuddled look on the faces of the multitude who are sitting there waiting for some profound truth. Because what Jesus just told them was, yeah, you're right. The sower went out. He sows the seed. Sometimes it falls by the wayside and the birds come and eat it. Other times it falls on some stony ground and it doesn't have much root, and so it jumps up, but it is withered and it dies. Sometimes it falls among thorns. The thorns choke it out. And most of the time, though, if he's a good sower, if he's prepared the soil, he goes out and he throws it and it grows. I mean, the whole idea of sowing wheat or barley or grain or whatever that he's sowing here is to produce a harvest where it multiplies and we get more than we started with. Duh. Thanks, Jesus. That was really great. And he doesn't explain it to the multitude. See, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And I think this is one of the big challenges that we have, because our expectation is that Jesus is going to spoon feed us, that he's going to just tell us everything we need to know, and he's not going to challenge us to be engaged, to think, to study, to discern, to pray, and to look for spiritual understanding. I think it's just like kids who want the answers to the test, but they don't want to study the material, so they know the answers to the test. The expectation that Jesus has is that if you're a spiritually minded person and you understand that he's a spiritual teacher, that you're going to grab hold of some kind of spiritual truth out of what he's saying. And yet even his own disciples didn't understand it. And so, we live in a world that doesn't understand. We live in a world that doesn't understand Christianity. The outside non-Christian world drives by our boxes with steeples on them and cars in the parking lot, and it's a mystery in there. It's as mysterious to them as as a casino is to someone who's never been in, or a Masonic hall is to someone who's never attended one. We drive by, we see the buildings, but we have no idea what's going on in there. And quite frankly, don't really care. We just know something else is happening in there. The world doesn't understand. And I'm afraid that even within the church, we have churches filled with Christians who, we know the songs, we know what we're supposed to think. We've been told what to believe all of our lives, as long as we've been going to church. We've been fed the doctrines that we're supposed to repeat. But how many Christians actually spend time trying to gain greater discernment, to really understand what it is that God is trying to say to you as an individual, to us as his people? What truth have we missed because we just want someone to tell us what to think, and we don't want to think for ourselves? See, Jesus has come and he's teaching in parables, and he's doing it for a reason. He's doing it to sift out the spiritually minded from the earthly minded, from the worldly. Because those who are spiritually minded are going to begin to get a clue of what he's trying to do. They're going to hang on his words, and they're going to start making these intuitive leaps of spiritual understanding. And those who simply don't have ears to hear, who refuse, who aren't interested in that, are just going to walk away and say, yeah, he taught a lesson on farming today. Great. Sitting in a boat. So, as we move forward in our study, it's important for us to realize that there's an expectation for the follower. There's an expectation for the student to engage, to listen. He begins saying, listen. And when he says listen, he's not saying process the words. He's saying open your heart, open your spirit, and listen with the spiritual discernment that comes from on high, so that you can understand this truth of the kingdom that I'm giving to as many as will receive it. Which of course tells us that there's many who won't. But we'll get into that later. Have a great day. See you next time. I hope you're enjoying this Bible study, this quick devotion. If you'd like more content, you'd like to know more about me and see more of the things that I'm doing, check out my website, theeclecticmonk.com. There you'll find out about my video vlog, my podcast, and a whole lot of other stuff. Hope you'll join me there. Thanks.